kids are here today, and I didn't like it that they laughed at me, so I'm going to stick with English tonight. On behalf of Ted Jackson, I want to thank you all for having us. In this commemoration, I think it's important that you know, as a matter of fact, one of your community members here who works at one of the hospitals suggested with a bit of glee having other people from within the community to come and join in your celebration. It's an honor to be here with you. It is an honor to be here with you. And I think from law enforcement, and Chief Moss from APD is going to talk to you, but I want to say we in law enforcement, both Chief Moss for Chief Turner and myself for Sheriff Jackson, it's important for you to know that we will not allow that to happen. The Turkish government could not have done what they did between 1915 and 1923 had the real officials, people who are responsible for your health and welfare, if they had articulated their responsibilities, if they had done what they should have done. Law enforcement in this community, and you are lucky, will do that. And it is our job to make sure that we protect your rights. There have been people before us that have talked about mending the wounds. One of the ways that we mend the wounds that happen as a result of the annihilation of the Armenian community is to be compassionate and do the right thing in law enforcement. And that's what we promise you. That's what we stand for. In our society, law enforcement must play a critical role in preventing such events as those that occurred between 1915 and 1923. We must do that. Law enforcement should be, and in our case, we will stand up for and do the right thing. And I mentioned compassion, and I'm going to quote somebody here, Arthur Jesuit, who states or defines compassion as follows. Compassion is the ultimate, most meaningful embroadenment of emotional maturity. It is through compassion that a person achieves the highest peak and the deepest reach in his or her search for self-fulfillment. Your participation in our community, Fulton County and the city of Atlanta, is helping this community reach its highest peaks. Understand that and don't give it up. There are 3 ways in Armenian that you can say thank you. Thanks, merci, and the 3rd way is rather hard for me, so I'm going to stay away from it. Thank you.
I would like to introduce our next guest speaker, Deputy Chief C.W. Moss from Atlanta Police Department, Chief P. Andrew Sands office for his speech.
Thank you and good evening. I bring you greetings and the sympathies of Atlanta's Chief of Police, George Turner. It is both an honor and a privilege to be here with you today, and I certainly join Chief Deputy Carter in our solidarity against such atrocities. Genocide and the violent oppression of people anywhere is an affront to human dignity and violates the core tenet upon which our great country was founded. The city of Atlanta has borne witness to many advances and great progress through the work and sacrifices of favorite sons like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ambassador Andrew Young, Senator John Lewis, and others who still today walk these hallowed halls with Senator Fort and others. And more people acknowledge that the best of what we want to be is founded in tolerance, understanding, and respect for fundamental human dignity. As Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There's no doubt that America, and in fact the world, is a better place today in many ways, thanks at least in part to our progress in living up to the ideals that all men and women are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. It's my prayer that we all look forward to just how much farther we can advance those ideals throughout the world in our lifetimes. Today we gather to condemn genocide anywhere and the injustices rooted in such crimes against humanity. We do so because remembrance and recognition is the only way to prevent future atrocities against humanity. We also glean hope and inspiration from the words of Gandhi, who said, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail." Today, it's a pleasure also to celebrate with you the survival and the spirit of the Armenian people, their rich heritage and their global reach. They and their descendants continue to make significant contributions to the culture, political, and commercial fabric here in America and throughout the world. May we, today, rededicate ourselves to the belief that inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all people are the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. Julieta Stepanian, for her speech. And we are very happy to have her with us today.
Thank you everyone for giving me this chance to say a few words. It's so fitting today on Earth Day when we honor the motherlode of life, that we're gathered here to recognize the historic injustice of genocide. It's also most fitting that here we do it in the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia, the location where America itself had moved history forward in the area of truth as regards civil and human rights. I myself don't represent any political party or organization, but I speak independently as a university educator, and I speak as the daughter of a father born in a refugee camp to genocide survivor, and as a widow of a son of a genocide survivor. In a world that seems increasingly divisive and increasingly aware of radical new shifts of economic power, practical policies are difficult to navigate, both domestically and internationally. As the recent revolutions in the Arab world have demonstrated, new hopes for more justice in the future are coupled with grave anxieties and concerns about what actually might really emerge ahead. This is a dangerous time, one fraught with paradoxes and ironies, and one which pits ethical stances sharply against calls for short-term political pragmatism. Sadly, at this time of international crisis, countries like the U.S. are cutting back on funding for international education and the study of foreign languages. Long used to denial by Turks of the genocidal crimes against Armenians by their Ottoman predecessors, Armenians have recently been joined by brave Turkish scholars who have spoken the truth about the genocide. It has taken nearly a century to reach this point, but historically, official discourse can often be slow in recognizing uncomfortable or inconvenient truths. Just a few weeks ago, my own university acknowledged publicly its association with slavery a century ago. The truth is not a flattering one, and it's not one that history can wipe away. But acknowledgement of truth did not crush my university. It didn't crumble. Rather, by piecing together its own history with the broader history of injustice to man, it strengthened its commitment to truth and to justice in a most powerful way by pointing the moral compass inward, not just outward. I cast the same challenge to the Turkish government. Ironically, though, at the very time when Turkish scholars and others speak the truth of genocide, Armenians themselves are feeling new pressures to tone down. Landlocked and bordering Turkey and Iran, this tiny contemporary Republic of Armenia is struggling to survive. In the face of political realities of the time, many, including leading Armenian advocates and humanitarians like Baroness Cox, claim that repeated calls by Armenians to recognize the historic genocide can possibly risk and be self-defeating because they impede rapprochement with Turkey and jeopardize possibly Armenia's chance to move ahead in the future. Certainly, there is some truth to this, but certainly, to move ahead, you cannot close your eyes to truth. This is not the first time in history that economic development has driven political agendas, and certainly Armenians understand that the wounds of yesterday cannot kill Armenians of today. We cannot bring back those martyrs of the Ottoman period, and likely those martyrs would agree that the survival of the present nation of Armenia is paramount. But let's be perfectly clear. Survival of today's Armenia, to assure the future of Armenia, rests on the sacrifices of those in the past. And while politically practical, removal of recognition of the Armenian genocide from the top of the list of conditions for rapprochement with today's Turkey, increasingly viewed as an ally for the West in the battle against terrorism. This does not erase the fact of genocide. If Turkey is given politically practical space to postpone recognition of the genocide, this must not mean that active denial of the genocide is okay. And the Turks have paid a lot of money in the past to deny this. Finding new ways to talk together does not mean finding new ways to cover the truth. We are living at a time when the world has become so interconnected by technology that not only can a YouTube posting make an unknown and international celebrity in a few hours, and Twitter can orchestrate revolutions, and cyberware warfare can be waged against whole countries or individuals. So much attention has been made to technologies that give voice to individuals and groups that had no voice before. But technologies, too, can silence. And however practical or deliberate the silencing or quieting about genocide may be, and there is a cyber